So Dark Souls. Dark Souls is, quite the thing, eh? Well, here we are in probably the worst level ever designed by anyone ever. And I mean that with the, sincerest of hatred. This place was horrendous. This is called the Shrine of Amana, and anyone who's played through this game is aware that this place is just awful. Full of blind drops into water to your death. Full of very annoying enemies with a much longer range than you that fire homing magic, and a couple of weird invasions as well. But anyway, with that rant out of the way, I was luckily able to beat the boss my first try, so I don't have to go through that crap again. Welcome to Dark Souls 2. Let's go up to this bonfire and take a chill pill after all that. That was really stressful. Okay. So yes, Dark Souls 2, the sequel to Dark Souls, has come to PC about a month later than the console version-ish, which is fine because the port is much better this time around. Far better, in fact. The port is so much better, I would say, that it's well worth the wait. Graphically, it's not the most impressive game ever, but Dark Souls was never going to be. Even back to the original, being Demon Souls, which I'm going to be referencing quite a lot in this video, the games never looked incredible, graphic sort of prowess-wise. But in terms of aesthetic, that's where they usually shine. They have a very unique, dark but beautiful aesthetic to them. I believe Jim Sterling calls it beautifully bleak, a la Shadow of the Colossus. And I would tend to agree, it's actually quite pretty. As you can see, this place, in my opinion, is actually beautiful, as horrendous as it is. With this crazy root canopy flooded district, it's quite the thing, really. If you're looking at texture quality, it doesn't look that amazing, and none of the versions do. But if you're looking at actual aesthetic style, which in my opinion matters a lot more, it looks good, it looks very good. Quite unique, lots of areas in the game are. There's a lot of treasure over there I need to get, but I'm not worrying about it right now. So, the port is better in pretty much every way. You have all of the graphic settings you would expect. Anti-aliasing, anisotropic filtering, you have a proper VSync option, and it also runs at a frame rate from this century. It runs at 60 FPS. Very solid, I've not really had it drop below that. It doesn't run any higher than that, which is unfortunate for those of you with 120Hz monitors, but still, 60 is better than 30, by far. And finally, the keyboard controls are actually playable. I'm moving the camera with the mouse right now. It's quite sensitive, of course you can change that. But you can even bind all of the keys, and also have multiple functions, both on keys and on combinations of various mouse clicks, so that, say I could have my right-handed strong attack on K and on double right-click the mouse, like that. So I could use either, which is nice. It's a very unrestrictive key binding system. But, in my opinion, you're still far better off playing these games with a controller. Dark Souls just works best with a controller, and that's that, in my opinion. But the option is there, and the keyboard controls are far, far better, much better than the first one. So as far as the port goes, it's solid, it's good. Nowhere near the disaster of the first. So I'm gonna head back to the town, the sort of nexus, if you will, Majula. And we're gonna start this video off right, I suppose, because I should be able to get a level or two. Majula is your Firelink Shrine, is your nexus. This is the safe area where you will be returning, and all of the NPCs you rescue, the ones that wish to move at least, will also be coming here to congregate. And this is the Emerald Herald. She is your Maiden in Black. She is how you level up. Now, the leveling system is similar to all of the games, in that you spend souls, progressively and exponentially more souls, to increase your stats. But the stats work a little bit differently this time around, so we're going to detail that first. But let me use any of the souls I have here. There we go. That might allow me to get 2 levels, probably just 1, but maybe 2. We'll find out. Alright, here we go.
Bearer of the curse, I will always be at your side until hope has fully withered.
So yes, voice acting in this game, extremely good. Pretty much every major NPC has a voice actor who is... they know what they're doing. Some of them are really funny, some of them are very silly, but all of them are good, and you get quite a broad range of accents and silly voices, so I approve of the voice acting immensely in this. So let's level. The most intimidating part of any Souls game is the level up screen. But luckily, just as with the others, you can choose the help option and see what every one of these symbols means. Now there are a couple differences to statistics in this. You have Vigor, which directly increases your HP, which is a little bit different than before. The attunement system works differently, as well as increasing the number of slots you have. For magic and your cast speed, it also increases at certain intervals the number of casts that spells have. And I'll detail that a little bit more in a few. You also have this, which is adaptability, which is the resistance stat from Dark Souls, which was totally useless. In this game, in my opinion, it's still pretty much useless, but it does a bit better. It makes rolling a little easier, as well as increasing these resistances. It can also increase your poise, which is important, and it actually, although it doesn't tell you, it increases the speed of the animation from drinking from your Estus flask. But anyway, let's see, I need to up my faith more. I've had to respec a few times. There are respecs available, full respecs, with this consumable item called a soul vessel. And I've taken some points away from faith to get my int and vitality and strength up. I play like a very heavy spell sword type of character usually in the Souls games, and a lot of games actually. So I need to start increasing faith once again so I can work on hexes, which is another thing I'll explain. And that's the level up system. Very similar to Demon Souls, similar to Dark Souls, only you can't do it anywhere. Like in Demon Souls you have to go to a specific NPC. Now, let's see, what else is different this time around? The combat system is a bit different. It feels a little more fluid. Movement is more important. Weapons, just as in all of the games, have various movesets depending on weak and strong attacks, rolling, sprinting, one-handed, and two-handed, allowing you to almost kind of make up your own combos a bit. And there are lots of different varieties of weapons with lots and lots of different movesets. In fact, I will show you. I have a bunch of weapons on me right now because I need to put a lot of them away, but here we go. This is what I just got for beating that boss. It's a keyblade, basically. Quite the lore here. In fact, I know of a place where I can use this, but this thing looks kind of awesome, I've got to admit. It's a giant key sword. And it appears to use the Ultra Greatsword moveset, from what I can tell. So, the reason I've waited so long to make this video as opposed to doing it on launch was because I have quite the opinion of the Souls games. I absolutely love the series, and I have since Demon Souls first came out, and I played the crap out of it. Way too much to be healthy, by the way, don't do that. And I wanted to get a very good, solid opinion on this game before I made a video of it. I'm not a reviewer, and this shouldn't be considered a review, but I still wanted to get, stupid statues, a very informed opinion of what this game has to offer. So I played about 40 hours of it so far. I've put a lot of time into it. As you can see, I'm like soul level 141 right now. So I'm far into it. I'm nearing the final stretches of the game, but not quite there yet. So what it all comes down to is, what's this like in comparison to the previous? You know, is it different enough, and how different does it need to be? Well, in my opinion, it shouldn't be that much different, gameplay-wise, because the gameplay of Dark and Demon Souls was spot on. They made a very weighty movement and combat system that didn't feel clunky, and that felt very, very good, very responsive, and very satisfying. And also, the overall design of the game is that they are very tough, but not unfair, and that the difficulty is not frustrating, and you simply must learn from your mistakes. If you repeat the same things, the same strategies over and over, then you will not get anywhere. You're expected to learn, and that's where the difficulty of the game comes from. They're not unfairly Nintendo hard, they're simply unforgiving, meaning they will not tolerate your mistakes, and you have to learn to play a bit better. That's all. So right now we're just going to move on to the next area, which I believe is the Undead Crypt. And here we go. So the game itself is a bit of a combination between Demon Souls and Dark Souls. So for instance, the spell system. In Demon Souls you had an MP bar, and you had consumables that increased your spell uses. Fresh Spice, I believe, and Old Spice, Odor Blocker Body Wash. And In Dark Souls, you had a spell usage system where spells had a number of uses that were replenished by going to a bonfire. This is a bit of a combination because spells now use a good amount of stamina when you cast them, but they still have the number of uses, as you can see over here. But uses can be increased in small amounts by your attunement stat, and also they can be replenished by consumables, various types of herbs. So it's a bit of a combination of the two. They added another type of magic, known as hexes. Hexes are quite strong spells that use a dark element, which is new to the game. It's the DLC for Dark Souls, the Artorias of the Abyss DLC, was a sort of precursor to this. It had some spells of a darkness element, although darkness wasn't actually an element per se in Dark Souls, ironically enough. In this case... Oh, pretty. In this case, it is its own element, and hexes are various spells that use it. That is a bonfire. I wish to get in there. But hexes also take a fairly large amount of intelligence and faith to use, and thus you require a very magically devoted character to use them well enough. Covenants make their return. There are various covenants. As you can tell, the top left of the screen where my health and stamina is, that little black spirally symbol, that is your covenant. That's oil. Oh god, he's wielding a torch. That was dumb. And once you join a covenant, its symbol will be displayed up there. And quite simply put, it is a very similar system. Hey, what's up? To Dark Souls. Join covenants. There are several PvP-focused ones, a few PvE-focused ones, and a co-op-focused one. The heirs to the sun make their return. Yes, I am in a covenant called Pilgrims of the Dark, which involves some very, very hard PvE-based content, as well as a very cool optional boss, and that allows you to get a few extra hexes that you normally would not be able to get. Watch out for those affinity orbs. Oh my god. Similarly to all of the other games in the series, the lore of the world is very, very obscure, very obfuscated, and not told to you directly. Now, some people have a problem with this because it returns more to the Demon Souls way of doing the lore, and that is, it is extremely obfuscated. You have to dig up a lot of it yourself by reading things such as the description of boss souls, the descriptions of equipment, realizing what enemies dropped what equipment. I'm gonna get hit from behind. This is not good. Okay. Let's not do that. Okay, I'm out of stamina. I'm gonna die. Oh my god. But what that means... Ooh, got me. What that means for a lot of people is they don't like that. They like the Dark Souls way of doing it, which is a combination of story that's told to you through cutscenes and through talking to NPCs, and a little bit of stuff you have to figure out yourself. But this game goes back to the Demon Souls way of doing it, which is not a lot is told to you directly. The NPCs do tell you a lot of stuff, but you have to pretty much exhaust the conversation options with every NPC to actually progress and to learn, as well as read a lot of material such as I said, boss soul descriptions, equipment descriptions, and things like that. Which some people don't like. It's a very investigative way to tell the lore. It requires players to actively attempt to learn a lot of it themselves, and if they don't, they simply won't find things out. I like that. I like that a lot, because I really love that sort of variant of storytelling. But I understand that some people don't. Ow. So, that's another difference in this title compared to the previous ones. These guys are going to be a huge pain. Now, combat differences also include, as well as a fairly large variety of different movesets for various weapon types, and more weapons that have those special uses where it basically takes some weapon durability to use some sort of special power of the weapon. There are more of those. It also changes the way shields work a bit. The actual speed at which you raise your shield can vary significantly depending on the stats required for the shield and things like that, such as great shields and other small types and things like that. It differs. As well as there just being a lot more equipment variety in general. There's a lot of sets of armor, a lot of weapons, and what this means overall is a lot of choice, which of course I like a lot. I love the choice involved. What I don't like is the lock-on system. They've changed the lock-on system in this game a bit. They've basically nerfed the distance at which you can lock on to enemies, which is fine, but sometimes it can get extremely fiddly. Meaning, more or less, there are often moments where I should be able to lock on to an enemy, but for some reason I am unable to do so. There is maybe a tiny wall, like an ankle-high wall in front of the enemy, and that will, for some reason, prevent me from actually locking on to them, which is extremely frustrating. This was very apparent in the Shrine of Amana area that I was in earlier. It's not a problem throughout the entire game, but for instance, that rubble there in front of this caster, I could not lock onto them because it was in the way. Which is, as I said, extremely frustrating. But it's a problem that exists more in certain areas of the game as opposed to entire large tracts of the game. So what about healing? Ooh, a staff. Healing has changed a bit too, and is again a bit of a combination of the previous two games. In Dark Souls you had this, the Estus Flask, which is a flask that refills a good amount of health and has an infinite number of uses because, although it has a limited number of charges, uses are restored every time you rest at a bonfire. Demon Souls had a large selection of herbs that you ate. This grass, like crescent moon grass, full moon grass, dark moon grass, new moon grass, etc., etc. There were a ton of them. This is a combination. You still have the Estus Flask.
Human, do not produce light.
Okay.
Light, and all those who bear it are unwelcome in this place.
I apologize. But you have the Estus Flask, but interestingly enough, in this game you don't start with it. You get it after the tutorial area, which also, in a difference from the other games, doesn't have a boss at the end, which is a bit strange for some people. You actually have to exhaust the dialogue with that Emerald Herald character that I showed you that levels you up. Okay. And she allows you to level up, as well as giving you the Estus Flask after you've exhausted dialogue with her. The Estus Flask starts with only one use instead of 5. And you have to get these shards hidden in areas across the world to empower it. Dang it. This place is going to be a pain. Playing this game while talking is really hard for me, but anyway. Life gems, as you saw in my inventory possibly, those are the sort of replacement for the grasses. They restore your health very slowly, and are consumables that, of course, are not replaced when you go to a bonfire. Also, the maximum amount of Estus Flasks is 12 charges, as opposed to, what was it, 15 or 20 in the original? And life gems come in 3 different varieties that restore differing amounts of health at a slow rate. And as you saw, even Estus Flasks don't restore your health instantly. They actually restore very quickly, but still not instantaneously. Which is, again, a bit of a difference. Those affinity orbs are actually kind of adorable. But what this causes is, again, a very parallel way of playing that's a hybrid of Demons and Dark Souls, which I like, because I've got to be honest, I actually like Demon Souls more than I like the original Dark Souls, which is probably a bit of an unpopular opinion. I love Dark Souls a lot. I liked it a whole lot, but I honestly did prefer Demon Souls for a couple of reasons. And this harkens back to a lot of that, which I like, and some other people don't. Some people have criticized the world design as not being quite as connected as Dark Souls. And again, that's something to take from Demon Souls, in that the world was connected via a lot of teleports at this Nexus location. That's what it was called, the Nexus. And that made the world feel a bit less connected, because each of the 5 areas in which you visited were basically entirely separate realms. And in the lore of the game, they were like continents. And a lot of people didn't like that, and really, really preferred the Dark Souls way of doing it. And this, again, is a combination of the two, with some areas that are very obviously physically connected, and others that are a bit more jarring to enter. So, again, what the pattern you're really seeing here is that it's a very obvious combination of the other 2 games, which I like. Okay. What about boss fights? Well, boss fights, there's a lot of them. There's a ton of them. And if we go and look at my souls, I've traded a lot of them in for items, but let's just read that. The Demon of Song was the last boss I defeated, so let's see here. Soul of the Demon of Song at the Shrine of Amana. When this demon developed a taste for human flesh, it was contained within the Shrine of Amana. But the line of priestesses who looked after the shrine and appeased the creature have died off. So you get a little bit of lore, and if you combine that with the lore of the objects you picked up from the priestesses, their armors and staves and things like that, and the descriptions of the shrine from NPCs that tell you to go there, you get an overall kind of nebulous cloud of lore about the area. It's a shrine dedicated to enshrine this demon.
Human light.
And it's come to ruin because all of the priestesses have become hollowed and now no longer do their job. Basically, that's the gist of the story. And again, I love that way of telling a story. I like lore that is obfuscated, but not in such a way as to deliberately, like, hide bad lore. It's still very good lore, in my opinion. It's simply a bit, it's told differently, that's all. I like that, some people don't. So, area-wise, what are, the levels in the world like? A lot of variety, just like in the previous games. There are lots and lots of places to go. As you saw when I was at a bonfire, you can travel in this game, fast travel, which is very similar to how Dark Souls was once you got the Lord Vessel. In this game, you can actually do that from the very beginning. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can always do it. This place is disturbing. Let's give this guy a listen.
I'm Ugday, guardian of the crypt.
You have blue skin, my friend.
Countless dead rest here in peace, cradled by the comfort of dark. Light only agitates.
I've heard if you bring a torch in front of this guy, he will aggro on you. And that some people leave messages here that say, like, try torch to get people killed. By the way, you're not seeing messages and phantoms and stuff because the game's in offline mode right now. Apparently the servers are down for maintenance or something because they will not connect, even though I'm connected to the internet. This is not a common problem with the game. The servers work just fine. I'm guessing there's just maintenance or something going on right now. This is the only time this has ever happened to me. So that's why you're not seeing messages on the ground and things like that. Those features are still in this game and are still very important. In fact, there's a very heavily expanded message system. But you're not seeing them because it's in offline mode right now.
I am a finito.
Hello, Finito.
We weave
Or a Finito.
watch over the dead.
I see.
This task was granted to me by the one who gave us the first death.
And see, that's a little bit of lore right there. The one who gave us the first death. Are they referring to Nito?
Ages long ago.
Gravelord Nito?
Others poor, some wise, some dull, but now they're all just dead.
And this is what I mean. You're getting lore from talking to this NPC repeatedly about this area and the things that are in it. You can then combine this knowledge with, say, the descriptions of the items, the armors and weapons that the enemies will drop here, as well as possibly the boss design and the boss soul and things like that, and come up with an overall picture of lore for the area. So, understanding the lore requires work from the player more so than Dark Souls did.
Did you come for him? The one called Fendrick.
Yes, I did actually.
You'll find him deeper inside.
Okay, thank you.
Many council servants and the like have come to fetch their lord.
Guessing none of them
But they
succeeded.
rest here now, put to death by the king's own guard.
Yeah, no surprise there.
Perhaps he's not in the mood for company.
Apparently he's not.
In the past, humans were one with the dark.
Dark Souls reference. Again.
The former king of light, he feared humans. Feared that they would usher in an age of dark.
A reference to Gwen, Lord of Cinder.
How queer you humans. How you go on, never separating truth from fiction.
And there you go. Again, there are tons of references to the first game. Characters from the first game. You can get souls, such as references to Seath the Scaleless, the Witch of Izalith, and more. There's a lot of lore in this area that has to do with the first Dark Souls, but again, it's very obscure, and you have to figure a lot of it out yourself. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything, but I have a few ideas as to what this world you're in called Drang Lake actually is.
This place is welcome to all, provided due reverence is shown. Death is equitable, accepting. We will all one day be welcomed by her embrace.
Yes.
Tell me what you desire. Show me reverence, and I will lend you my hand.
Oh, so is he a merchant? Ah, interesting. Grave Warden Agdane. What will you teach me? The Have Mercy gesture, okay. What do you sell? Ooh, a lot of stuff. Alright. A Shield of the Insolent. Formerly high-ranking clerics. Now their souls wander aimlessly in the depths of a murky darkness. Oh dear. Insolent set. Party who long ago attempted to conquer the undead crypt. For this sin, their deaths have been postponed so they may serve as crypt sentries. See, that's a cool story. Ring of Thorns. Got some dark equipment. Ooh, a bunch of effigies. And a bunch of Elizabeth mushrooms, which again, I'm pretty sure is a reference to Elizabeth. And these are your humanities. These reverse hollowing, which is a system I'll explain in just a few. Ooh, another soul spear. Ooh. Ooh. Buying it. So, as you can see, if you look up there at my health gauge, it is no longer maxed out. There is a little piece of it missing. And that's the death system of this game. Again, a combination between Dark Souls and Demon Souls. In Demon Souls, when you died, you entered what was called Soul Form, in which you had half of your full health gauge. The rest of it was grayed out and unable to be healed, unless you used the Demon Souls version of a humanity, which was called a Stone of Ephemeral Eyes, if I remember correctly. Searching for fake walls here. And in Dark Souls, dying actually didn't have much of a penalty at all. In fact, it was almost a good thing, because if you were hollowed, you couldn't be invaded. In this game, you can be invaded even while you're hollowed, which is, of course, what happens when you die. You are less likely to be invaded by players, but you still can be. Every time you die, 10% of your health gauge goes away. So it's more forgiving than Demon Souls was. That means you have to die a total of 5 times for your health gauge to be at 50% of its normal maximum, and that's as far as it will go. It will not decrease any farther than that. Now, right now I have what's called a Ring of Binding on, which actually causes me to lose less of my maximum health gauge when I die, as well as limiting it to only 75% of its full, instead of the normal 50%. So, it's sort of like the Cling Ring from Demon Souls. In this game you have 4 ring slots instead of 2, which is a bit different. There are a large variety of rings this time around, even more so than in Dark Souls, as well as the fact that rings actually have +1 and +2 versions. Not all of them, but most of them. Usually the +1 version is a treasure that can be found or bought. As you saw, he who sold the Ring of Thorns +1. And it is a ring similar to the original that has a enhanced effect, but also if it had any downsides, those are enhanced as well. And a +2 version of the ring is usually New Game Plus only, and that's another thing to explain, but usually bosses can drop a +2 version of a specific ring. In fact, I have one, and I will tell you how. New Game Plus is more important in Dark Souls 2 than in the previous 2 games, because not only does it make enemies worth, oh my god, worth more souls and have more health, it also adds new enemies in some levels and new attacks as well as new drops. For instance, there will be more Black Phantom NPCs, like invaders, but NPC versions of invaders instead of players. In New Game Plus, there are some of them that you won't meet in your normal path through the game the first time around. There are some places where more enemies are placed, and things like that. And it happens in a specific way. Now, in this game there is a way to enhance an area, if you will, into its farther difficulty, without actually entering New Game Plus, and that is an item called a Bonfire Ascetic. I think I'm pronouncing ascetic correctly. What happens is, you take one of these... Aha! Skeleton. Oh my god! The heck? There's ghosts here! Okay, I don't have to be cursed to fight them, at least. That scared the crap out of me. When you go to a bonfire, you can burn things in it. So you can burn, say, those human effigies, which I explained earlier are like humanities. They restore you to full maximum health. They reverse Halloween completely. Goodness. If you burn a human effigy, it decreases the likelihood that you'll be invaded, as well as increasing the difficulty of actually getting a co-op partner for a small period of time. You can burn these ashes that will increase your Estus Flask healing. As you can see, I have an Estus Flask plus 5 because I found 5 of these ashes to burn, which I believe is the max in a playthrough. I'm guessing these will spawn infinitely unless I break that. Ah, jeez. You can also... Dang it. You can also do a fair few other things, like burning these bonfire ascetics, and what this will do is increase the intensity of a bonfire, which means that all of the enemies around it, enemies affected by it, will basically become New Game Plus. They will be worth the amount of souls and have, you know, all of the difficulties and things as the New Game Plus version of that enemy. It will respawn the world around that, meaning wooden chests will respawn, corpses with loot, like this one, nice, will respawn, and bosses will respawn, and you can fight the harder version of that boss without actually going into New Game Plus. And that is how I obtained this, the Covetous Silver Serpent Ring plus 2, which makes enemies drop more souls. That is from the New Game Plus variant of Mytha the Baneful Queen, a very interestingly designed boss who more or less is a sort of Naga-like Medusa type of character that is beheaded and uses her head as a spellcasting implement against you. Not joking. So, spells work a bit differently in terms of casting. Catalyst is now the term that's used not for what you use to cast sorceries with, but for all spellcasting implements in general. Staves, or staves, cast sorceries, and chimes cast miracles instead of talismans. Talismans don't exist. You also have a pyromancy flame as well as a dark pyromancy flame that does more damage the more hollowed you are. And hexes, some of them take a staff and some of them take a chime. So that's the way that the spellcasting system works now. And again, there are many, many variants of both. Oh, crap. Co-op is a bit more important in this game than it was previously, and what I mean by that is there are a lot of bosses now that are multiple bosses or that summon adds of some kind and things like that. And what this means is having a friend along with you is often more important to successfully defeating a given boss. That doesn't mean soloing bosses is impossible. I've done many of them myself. But I will say that there are far fewer bosses that I've beaten on my first go in Dark Souls 2 than there were in the original. I would say most boss fights are pretty well designed, There are some that might be considered a little bit lazy, like say the Dragon Riders, which are just basically 2 of a boss you've already fought before. But there are a lot of very interestingly designed bosses, like the Demon of Song, the Rotten, just fun to fight, and also quite difficult. But fair. So, that really settles up a good sort of roundup of this game in general, what it is, and this is Dark Souls 2, everyone. I like it. I like it more than the previous Dark Souls, but I don't think it's objectively better. I think there are things that have been improved, and some things that have been changed, and a lot of the changes I like for the better. But I know that some of these changes, not everyone is going to feel the same about. So, do a little more research, and if you really want to play it, get it. It's incredibly fun, and I would recommend it. To anyone who liked Demon Souls or Dark Souls, I would highly recommend it. It's a bit different than either of those, but not in a bad way. So, this is not the only video I'm going to produce on this game, not by far. There will be more. But it's going to take a little while. And, I suppose that's it for now. Ow, everyone. Holy crap. Dang it, I'm stuck. So, oh my goodness. This is Dark Souls. Another thing I'll say is that strength has been made a lot less useless, and there are far more areas in this game where a lot more enemies in number will spawn. Again, making co-op a lot more useful. So there we go. Please, again, keep in mind that this is the offline mode because the servers currently are down for some reason or another. Hopefully that will be fixed soon. Out of stamina, crap. And this is Dark Souls 2, folks. Much better port. Holy crap! Very, very good game. Very interesting game. And keeps a lot of things I liked from Demon Souls alive. Thanks everyone for watching. There will be more coverage of this game as I continue through it, and if anyone has a request of something they'd like to see, say a New Game Plus boss fight, or anything like that, any particular areas, strategies, items, how to get certain things, whatever, let me know in the comments. I'll do it. And there we go, everyone. I'm going to try and continue through this area without dying horrendously. Good luck with that. And thank you for watching. Please give me some suggestions, if you will. I'd like to do some stuff for people. And if people want to know about what I think of the lore of this game, if they'd like me to do a sort of lore series of the kind of things that I've come up with playing this, I will gladly do so. Also, by the way, your equipment breaks a lot easier in this game. But it's restored at a bonfire, so you gotta watch out for that. So, yes, thank you for watching, everyone. And I'll see you next time. Damn it.